Okay, thanks for that great video to start us off, get the day going. Very exciting. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to Plug and Play Health's Winter Expo 2021. My name is Jennifer Thomas, and I'm Managing Director of Plug and Play Health. We've put together an exciting event for you today, so we're really pleased to have you join us. So let's get to the agenda. This week and next, Plug and Play Verticals will hold expos featuring keynotes and the startups that just graduated from the most recent accelerator batch programs. So please feel free to join any others that you may be interested in, whether it's insurtech, mobility. It's really the best way to stay current on this fast-moving world we're living in. So our agenda for today's expo, we're going to have a really great discussion with two esteemed guests who are experts in understanding what's next in innovation. Then we'll have our startup showcase where 15 of our startups that were in our fall accelerator program will present their solutions. And finally, we'll announce our corporate innovation award winner. You don't want to miss that. And you'll have a chance to vote on your favorite startup for the People's Choice Award. So please stay tuned all the way to the end. Just a bit on who we are. We have a small but mighty team along with me. Our team consists of Ava Ascari. She's Senior Program Manager. Nathan Sundheimer is Corporate Development Manager. And Alex Tran is our Principal in Ventures. And Julianne Roseman is Senior Ventures Associate. And finally, Peter Toe is our Partner Success Manager. So we have a fantastic team. A big thanks to our team for helping us put this great event on and for running the accelerator this fall. We love our partners in the U.S. Plug and Play Health has 16 partners located from all across the country. We're a mix of health system, pharmaceutical companies, and industry. And as a point of reference and clarification, it's our anchor partners who help us choose the startups that are invited to participate in our accelerator programs that you'll see today. So today we couldn't be more excited to announce that we have a new partner, EY Parthenon, who joined us this past fall. They've joined as an Ecosystem Plus partner. They're super engaged, and we're so excited to feature one of their experts at our partner roundtable next month. So partners, stay tuned and please be sure to join us. So a big welcome to EY. All right, so Plug and Play is global. We have 7 locations with dedicated health programs. Along with the US, we have Munich, Abu Dhabi, Singapore, Shanghai, and Kyoto. We also have our office in Cleveland. And since inception, we've accelerated over 400 startups, made over 100 investments, with a healthy percentage of those just made in the last 18 months. And we have 41 corporate partners. And we are growing. We're growing locations. We're so excited today to announce that pretty soon, Alberta tech entrepreneurs and startups will have access to an accelerator with worldwide reach that will help them grow their businesses. So Alberta Innovates, chose Plug and Play Alberta to support, assist, and grow a new program there, which is intended to fill a scale-up gap in the province's innovation system by helping local tech companies grow and by attracting global firms and investment to the province. So Plug and Play will be in 2 cities in Canada. We'll be in Calgary and Edmonton, and we will offer sector agnostic and sector-based accelerator programs in digital health, which is why we're so excited, and sustainable clean resources. So we're just getting this off the ground now, but if you're in Calgary or Edmonton in 2022, please come visit us. We're so excited to be there. All right, so what we know for sure in healthcare is that the trends are changing so quickly, but we at Plug and Play Health remain committed to staying with you through this, bringing you knowledge and great content and service so that both our corporate partners and startups can achieve the goals to advance innovation and the delivery of healthcare. So that is why we're so excited to bring you today 2 esteemed speakers. So I'd like to ask Xuan Gui and David Litsky to turn on their video. David and Xuan, welcome, and thank you so much for being here. We're so excited. The way this is going to work today is that Xuan is going to give a presentation called Stop Trying to Be Innovative for the first 10 minutes, and then David is going to join him, and they're going to talk about what healthcare can learn from the most innovative companies of 2021. So let me quickly do some bios and introductions, and kick it off here. So Schwen is Vice President of Global Digital Strategy at BMS. He is a recognized pioneer in digital health who was named a top 40 healthcare transformer by M&M Magazine in 2015. He was also named a PR Week Health Influencer 50 in 2017 and 18, a Constellation Research Business Transformation 150 in 2020, and then most recently recognized as Medica's list of 50 of the most influential voices in healthcare in 2021. And this is why we're so excited to have him give us his presentation today and really talk about what's next in healthcare. Schwen also sits on various advisory boards, including Google Healthcare, South by Southwest Health, and others. And he brings 15 years of experience in digital health strategy and driving innovation in commercial, communications, and clinical organizations. Schwen also has time to organize startup events and pitch competitions annually, and he plays a role in advising and running healthcare hackathons around the world as part of MIT's Hacking Medicine team. So welcome, Schwen. So awesome to have you here today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Great. So also David Litsky will join Schwen. He is deputy editor of Fast Company. He's responsible for helping to steer its overall editorial direction with an emphasis on running its most innovative companies, franchise, as well as finding, commissioning, and editing long-form narrative feature stories that will appear in print and on the digital platforms. David was part of the leadership team that won the Magazine of the Year in 2014 from the American Society of Magazine Editors, and stories that he's edited have won the Deadline Club, New York Press Club, and James Beard Awards. So thank you, David, for being here as well.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Great. So what we're going to do now is David and I are going to turn off our videos. We're going to hand it over to Schwen to tell you why you should stop trying to be innovative. And then David will pop back on so we can talk about what healthcare can learn from the most innovative companies of 2021. Take it away, Schwen.
Thanks, Jen. It's really an honor to be here. Plug and Play has been a great partner for BMS, and certainly have enjoyed working with you and the team over the last year and a half that I've been with BMS, as well as previously in other companies I've also partnered with you. So it's been a long time relationship that we've enjoyed. Before we get started, because I am in a pharma company, I do need to make one caveat, and that is that the opinions that I express today are those of my own and not necessarily those of my company. So just keep that in mind as I tell you why you should stop trying to be innovative. Before I get started, let me tell you a little bit about my background. I spent almost 20 years in the pharma industry, and I feel like I've pivoted my career multiple times. Before I got into pharma, I actually spent quite a bit of time doing academic research, training to be a behavioral neuroscientist. And then when I got into pharma, I spent most of my time on the client side of the business, meaning I was inside a pharma company, small, mid-size, and also big pharma companies. And then I did take some time to spend also on the outside of the pharma industry, which is in creative agencies working with pharma companies. So most of my career has been spent in pharma, but the one thing that is consistent across that time is that I focused entirely on digital strategy and innovation during that time. And so I thought I'd start with really some personal mantras of mine that I've developed over the time of going through this career path of mine. The first lesson I learned was really that we need to really start meeting the needs of other people if we really want to innovate. That's a really important piece, and you'll see how all these play into what we're talking about in a short while. The second mantra is we can't solve healthcare alone, and that really means that we can't think that we have the solutions to everything just by ourselves, and we'll dig into it in a little while. And the last one, which I think is most obvious from what it's stated up there, and that is probably most pertinent to everybody listening today, is innovation is in the hands of the startups, and I'll dig into that shortly. So before we get started with the actual presentation, let's define what we mean by innovation, right? When I looked it up, it said the action or process of innovating. And the problem with that is almost as good as saying, the definition of strategy is to be strategic. So, I thought, why don't we look for some examples instead rather than relying on a definition? So let me ask you. Let's go into other definitions actually before we get into some examples. Other definitions I found is a new method, idea, or product. And so the question is that good enough to qualify as being innovative? So let me ask you, based on these examples. First, do you think the baby mop is a innovative product, right? Maybe if you have a very drooly baby, this might be a self-cleaning tool and therefore it's highly innovative for you. But essentially, you have to ask yourself, how innovative is that? Then how about the ostrich pillow? So if you travel a lot, maybe catching a snooze in the airport with an ostrich pillow might be something very useful. Then finally, let me ask you about people who like to wear, like the feel of grass under their feet and wear grass slippers. Is that innovative, or is that just something that's novel, is the question. Now you look at me and you say, hey, Shwen, those aren't digital, so obviously they're not innovative. So let's talk about some digital solutions or ideas, right? So let's start with the first one. How about the connected bottle cap opener? So the minute you pop open a bottle, people know where you are, they can come join you and have drinks with you. Or how about the connected toilet? So you can do your thing while you're on the Internet of Things at the same time. Well, finally, how about the Bluetooth-enabled tampon? And we won't illustrate that or have an animated GIF of that, but you get the idea. Are these truly innovative, or are they just novel? So the question is, why stop trying to be innovative? Well, the big problem I have with trying to innovate is that often we jump to a solution before we actually understand what the problem is. And so if we're not trying to be innovative, then my plea to you is stop trying to be innovative before you knock yourself out. And so if we're not trying to be innovative, then what should we be? And really, the solution is what all you guys are doing, which is you need to think like a startup. And what does that really mean? Well, let's go to a definition by this guy who's the CEO of Patagonia, the clothing brand. He says, if you want to understand the entrepreneur, study the juvenile delinquent. The delinquent is saying with his actions, this sucks, I'm going to do my own thing. So that is essentially the essence of being a startup, is to do something differently because you think something isn't being done well enough. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a page out of this group, these delinquents of, let me go back one slide. These delinquents at MIT Hacking Medicine who are breaking the rules through healthcare hackathons. I'm a senior advisor and I help organize and run some of these events as well. And really they have a three-part mantra that I'm going to really talk about very quickly. And so their mantra is break it down, build it up, and make it better. And so let's dig into this. So the first one, break it down. What does that really mean? Well, break it down is really, to summarize it, it can be, it's based on this quote by this guy, Joshua Schachter. He says, you have to solve a problem that people actually have, but it's not always a problem that they know they have. So that is tricky. And so the problem with people, when you start trying to understand what the real problem is that people don't always do what they say they do, what we think they do, or they think they do. So what we have to realize is, even though we do a lot of market research, there are different types of research. We tend to focus a lot on quantitative, segmented, explicit need type research, but that's really good for product validation. If we want to do something that's truly innovative, we really have to do research and observation, because that's good for product creation. And that's really about focusing on what's qualitative. It's about individuals, about looking at latent needs in natural context, having dynamic conversations. And where do you think you can find all that? Well, one of the best places I've learned to look is really in the internet, right? So if you look at the internet, you can understand a lot about people's behavior through analysis and data. You can understand their intent through their search behavior. And then you can understand the experience based on all the forums and social posts that people make. In fact, a lot of companies are afraid of social because they're like, that's where everybody goes to complain. Well, guess what? If you're going to be innovative, you have to know what people don't like in order to make it better. And the other thing that you need to do is to really start to think about understanding people's how they think and feel, what they hear, what they see, what they do. So it's really to be empathetic. So truly, if you want to be to break it down, what you need to do is meet the needs of other people. So with that, let's move on to the second one, which is build it up. Now, building up is summarized by this picture here, which is, as everybody knows, the Apple logo from a long time ago. And really, what build it up is talking about is two things here. One is about diversity, and the other about creativity. And that's, I think, what this image really captures. So let's talk a little bit about diversity. This lady, who is a Harvard Business School professor, Linda Hill, says innovation is a journey. It is a type of collaborative problem solving, usually among the people who have different expertise and different points of view. It's not about bringing a bunch of people who all think the same way to try and solve a problem. It's about diverse thinking. And in fact, this other guy, if we go to the next slide, sorry, let me just touch on this one slide first. In MIT Hack Medicine, the way we actually drive diversity to be creative is to ensure that our hackathons have a good balance of diverse thinkers. We bring people from design, from healthcare, from the business side, from technical sides, and we mix them together because we truly believe that by diversity, we can actually be much more creative. And so let me go to this next quote that I was alluding to, which is by this guy, Franz Johansson, who wrote the book Medici Effect. He says, innovation comes ultimately from a diversity of perspectives. So when you combine ideas from different industries or different cultures, that's when you have the best sense of developing groundbreaking ideas. So in other words, diversity breeds ingenuity. Now, there's a whole book that's been written about this whole like cross-industry being able to borrow from one place and apply to another. And it's called Not Invented Here. And the question they ask is, what would X do? So what would a different company do to apply to your space? And let me give you some examples that they have in their book. So in the first example, what did the Formula One pit crew learn from the McDonald's drive-through in terms of ease of going through a system and making things happen very quickly? What did the car controller learn from the game controller? What did the folding stroller learn from the what did the 747 landing gear learn from the folding stroller? And so you can see that if we really want to build up an idea, what we really have to realize is that we cannot solve it alone. We have to think with diversity, and we have to think creatively. So finally, let's get to make it better. And I'm going through these very quickly only so that we can get to the best part of this, which is that conversation with David. So in terms of make it better, we'll start with a quote who's probably somebody that's not known as an entrepreneur, but certainly somebody who's very well respected in the sciences, who is Charles Darwin. And he says, it's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the one that's most responsive to change. And so taking that into mind, what we have to realize that we've got to move our thinking from a launch and wait type of model to an iterative cycle, right? In the past, and especially in big companies, we're used to having everything up front built towards that big launch. And that launch is the finalization of our product. Whereas in terms of innovating, in terms of trying to be like a startup, it's really much more about iterative cycle. It's about testing and learning along the way before getting to the final product. And even then, the final product continues to evolve. Because ultimately, what we have to realize that over time, pivoting may lead us far in a field from our original vision of what we're trying to do. But if you look carefully, you'll be able to detect the common threads that link each iteration. So in other words, that iterative cycle is really important for us to really respond and adapt our solutions to really meet the best needs. And the reason you need to do this is because you can pivot a product, but you cannot pivot a user base. So you have to be responsive and you have to do it quickly to really address the user needs. And so what we realize is that no matter how well you think about the right solution up front, the users will ultimately define how they use your product. And that's why we have to be responsive along the way. And so if we go to the next slide, let me ask you, with respect to that, what do these three companies have in common? Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Other than being filthy rich at this point in time, what else do they have in common? Maybe some of them were even invested in by the PNP group. But really what they have in common is that they all went through major pivots. Facebook was initially an online dating site, an online hot or not competitor. YouTube was a video dating site when it started, and Instagram was a Foursquare competitor. When you look at where Foursquare is now, you got to wonder how successful Instagram has been as a result of pivoting. So if you want to make it better, what you have to realize is innovation is in the hands of the startups, not because it's just startups that can innovate, but you have to think like one in order to be innovative. And so with that, I will leave you with the three mantras to remind you that what you need to do is meet the needs of other people, embrace diversity and learn from others, and think like a startup if you truly want to be innovative. And I will leave you with one quote by Johnny Ives, who was formerly from Apple. He says, "It's very easy to be different, but very difficult to be better." And so with that, first of all, let me just thank you for your time and attention. And now we get on to the best part, which is to bring David on stage and really talk about what healthcare can learn from the most innovative companies of 2021. So David, thank you for joining me today and for the time to really talk about this topic. It's great to be here with you.
Yeah, great to be with you again. Thank you for asking. Thank you, Plug and Play. And yeah, let's. I'm ready to see what you fire my way. Right.
Great. So let's get started, David. No time to waste, right? I think one of the first things I like to do, what we're going to be talking about is really about the recent Fast Company most innovative companies list. And you just released the 2021 list not too long ago. Before we dive into some of the examples there, can you help us understand how Fast Company defines innovation, and what are the characteristics that these companies are judged upon?
Sure. So see how I do compared to your definitions, but yeah, we've done this list of the world's most innovative companies since 2008, and I have worked on every one, but I've sort of run it since the 2012 edition. And basically, I think of it as that we look at it on sort of a sliding scale between innovation and impact. So we certainly want there to be a big idea or a significant whether it be a new product or a particular strategic move that sort of signals you to sort of think about a company in a completely different way, and then we want to see sort of how that is sort of being kind of captured in in their industry, in sort of the culture at large. And so but I think that we understand that things don't always operate on sort of a Roman calendar, so in these things. So that's why it's a sliding scale, right? So certainly to take the most obvious examples, last year we had Moderna and Pfizer and BioNTech at the top of our list. In that case certainly you did have effectively the innovation all take place sort of in that year. I mean clearly the impact of it didn't really sort of happen until this year. In other cases, we are sort of recognizing, where, a company, I'm trying to think of a good example, but, where, it is, sort of all happening, sort of in that, moment. I think, Netflix arguably, which was high on our list, this year, because it sort of experienced like record growth in subscribers in 2020 sort of in the wake of the pandemic, and that was certainly a result of things that it had sort of set in place in the previous years. So the innovations had really taken place before 2020, and the impact was so significant in 2020 that we felt the need to recognize it. So so that's sort of the rough sense. We definitely take an expansive view. We try not to be silly about it to some of your examples, but we do think about it, like I said, sort of both like it has to be a big idea and something that's meaningful for their company and sort of society, and we want to see sort of how that's rippling through the culture.
Great. Thanks, David. Just so you know, for me, you've been dropping off a little bit every now and then, but I'm not sure there's a lot you can do besides, subscribe to a higher bandwidth plan.
I'm sorry, but yeah.
That's okay. No, I mean, we'll keep going. Hopefully it won't get too bad. You alluded to this earlier in what you just said, which was Moderna and Pfizer being at the top of the list this year. In previous years when we've done this, we usually say, what lessons can we learn from the top 10 that are not healthcare, because that's usually who they are. But this year the top 2 are in healthcare, so we're very proud of that fact. But what I'd like to understand is the fact that they were selected as the top 2 based on the fact that it was a scientific innovation, what they brought to the world, or were there other elements that contributed to their rankings that actually mattered for the ranking that they got this year?
Well, I think that, overall, yes, there's no set sort of formula or number of healthcare companies that we're going to have any given year, but typically it's probably closer to 3 to 5 companies in the sector that ultimately make the world's 50 most innovative companies. And this year it was 7 companies, and I think obviously that's just reflective of the nature of the pandemic and wanting to sort of capture a variety of companies that sort of had a meaningful again sort of impact in trying to ameliorate the effect or help manage it in a significant fashion. I think ultimately with Moderna and Pfizer, and you couldn't sort of pick between them in that way, so they did share the number 1 spot. Just through the course of 2020, it was like, hey, look, vaccine development takes forever, and best case scenario, we're talking about maybe 3 years, and like they're back, we never had a vaccine off of the original SARS, COVID, 2003, and so I think that notion culturally of like, hey, this is not, there's no guarantee that we'll ever have a vaccine, and even if we do, it could take somewhere between 3 and 20 years. So to sort of have that happen in the course of 2020 and have FDA approved drugs before the end of the year was just considered such a remarkable achievement. And obviously and this sort of gets to I think one of the big points that I do want to make, that I think extends sort of in the healthcare business, but as a lesson that goes sort of applies more widely. But that was the work of a decade about of work for each of those companies, Moderna and BioNTech, that put them in position to then have this significant opportunity to create these vaccines in such record time. And and it's that kind of resilience and anticipatory thinking that I think is just central to having that kind of innovative mindset and always be basically on offense, to use a phrase that from a CEO of Nike, which is another company that I think is really interesting, and to use that sort of effectively to illustrate this point. So Nike didn't have, they had flirted with digital off and on for a long time, but effectively did not have any kind of direct relationship with its customers. It had a sort of brief, I think sort of unsatisfactory experience in trying to use Amazon as the way to do that in the mid 2010s. And in 2016 it basically ceased that relationship and started to really invest in having a direct relationship. And it launched a number of apps. It really sort of built up its own e-commerce. And so then when the pandemic hit, it had all of these ways in which it did have this connection, whether it's the Run Club app or the Training Club app, sneakers, to sort of cater to people who are interested in sort of collecting sneakers and always having the newest thing. It had all of these ways in which it could sort of reach the people who cared about Nike and cared about its products, such that it had like 84% growth in like its digital business, like in that sort of most uncertain time at the onset of the pandemic. And that not only sort of offset whatever losses from people not being able to necessarily shop, in person, but again, only sort of further cemented that sort of connection for people. And again, like that was, 4+ years in the making. And I think that's, the lesson, right? Like you're always should be like, what is the next thing? Again, as we live in this moment, where there is just going to be more, I think, volatility and uncertainty, in our lives, whether it be pandemics or climate related effects, like how are companies, again, sort of anticipating what those could be and putting themselves in position so that when, something does happen, that they're sort of right there. They're not coming at it from a standing start.
Got it. No, thank you. And that's a perfect segue actually to my next question, which is really about the top 20 companies. I mean, talk about necessity being the mother of invention, right? The pandemic really drove a lot of companies to really think differently and start doing things in a way that would really adapt to the environment and the situation that we were all in at that point in time. So it looks like, like the top two, amongst the top 20 companies that you have, many of them made the list as a result of what they did to empower people and businesses during the pandemic. But was that all that mattered? Because I'm just wondering, if you look across the top 50 overall, were there some common themes and common elements that were, that you could learn from across all these different companies, and that we can start to think about that really made them, why they made the list?
Well, I think that, sure. And we did identify, some of those themes. I think that, one, would be, certainly, again, we have to remember, it's sort of, are in November 2021 and, life moves fast. We can sort of forget. But, obviously there was also, a lot of sort of societal, tumult, culturally, with, sort of the racial reckoning, that took place, as well. And I think, companies, again, sort of, there were companies that were sort of prepared for that, and there were companies that, were unprepared for that. And again, it sort of comes down to, again, one of those, some of the ideas that you set out about, meeting the needs of others and being empathetic, and that innovation comes from diversity, of all kinds. And so, yeah, like that's why LeBron James and his company, Spring Hill, was on the cover, because we felt like, basically, as someone in the story says, like, everything that companies realized they should be doing, like in 2020, Spring Hill had been doing, again, for sort of, the 5+ years prior, direct to consumer, streaming, e-commerce, putting community first, again, diversity, sort of being grounded in social justice, seeking to empower its customers. These are, really important ideas that, again, obviously stretch beyond, being a media and entertainment company. And, that again, I think the best companies, the companies that, sort of have been able to, sort of, kind of get through a lot of the again, the sort of tumult, of these times, again, sort of had the ability, we're already sort of thinking and working on these ideas in such a way that, they were not, sort of caught unaware, when, George Floyd, was unfortunately murdered, and sort of led to this larger conversation that then spread into corporate America about, the nature of workplace, sort of composition and people's treatment. Excuse me. Anyway,
Bless you.
Yeah, excuse me. I'm sorry.
Have you got your flu vaccine yet?
I do need to get the flu vaccine. I am vaccinated. I am COVID-19 vaccinated. And go ahead and be on record for that, given that somehow remains controversial. So, yeah. So I hope that answers your question, but
it does. Thank you. No, that's really helpful.
Obviously, there are other sub-themes, I sort of hit one other is that, and this sort of, again, goes to another point you were talking about sort of iterative, thinking in that mindset versus launch and wait, like right now, and this, everyone's talking about the metaverse and whatever, and obviously Facebook, renamed its sort of corporate parent, in the spirit of that. And, I think that what's interesting, and we sort of did reflect this with companies like Epic Games, which is the maker of Fortnite, Snap, which, sort of has made significant investments in, augmented reality and filters, that like they're creating the future today, now, like it's happening, sort of in front of us, and they don't have to necessarily, put sort of, I mean, definitely the CEO of Epic Games just talked a bit about the metaverse, but like that idea, if you sort of take it to its fullest expression, could never happen, could happen in 30 years, sort of hard to say, but that notion of like that, hey, look, more and more people are going to live their lives, in sort of a digital context, they're going to get more sort of, personal satisfaction, or have sort of a greater sense, of their identity, or care more about their identity, in the digital world than necessarily in the real world. Well, those are ideas that are happening now. And so, how can companies, again, like just sort of start to iterate on those ideas and serve, that mindset today? And like, those are companies that are doing that, now. We don't need to, sort of have this sort of complete full-blown, sort of version of it where, we're having this meeting in virtual reality, 10 years from now. Like, maybe that happens, maybe it doesn't. But, what matters is sort of those opportunities to start to, introduce these ideas, get people comfortable with it, sort of right, and reflect whether it's what they want, or not, and adapt as you go. And I think that sort of, again, sort of iterating in public, and, like that is, I think very important and daring, in this moment, as opposed to just trying to present a vision of the future for, 2050 or what have you.
Oh, that's great. I mean, based on what you just said, it sounds like, a lot of these companies that really succeeded were already doing a lot of this. There was an intentional, continuous process and investment in this, in the way of working to really think ahead. And so when the pandemic hit, it was really more about then just amplifying what they were already doing, and really starting to adjust to the situation. And that's why a lot of them were able to succeed. So I think the question I have about that is, I think many of us can really see these new startups and how they were able to disrupt the world with their creative inventions. But how about bigger companies? And most people think about big companies like big ships. They take really long to turn, right? And so how do companies like Microsoft, which is number 9, start to reinvent themselves and become more innovative?
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft, I mean, definitely, like we sort of cited them for several different, initiatives. But yeah, I mean, I think that, when you're in that sort of situation where you are, effectively a conglomerate, that, you can, sort of allow for, remember, like, at this point, like, their gaming division is 20 years old, but, it was something that, I think struggled, early on, because, it just, they were like, well, how big can this ever be? Or like, does it really matter? Like, it'll, even if it has $1 billion in revenue, it's going to seem so small compared to, what we're getting from Windows or whatever. And yet they did sort of, I think power through that, sort of innovator's dilemma, to use the sort of classic, a bit of, business observation, and didn't sort of let that, sort of go. I think that's, I think really the challenge is, it's just very easy to look at, sort of new initiatives and say like, oh, this just is going to be really small compared to what else we do. And, so maybe it's not worth it. Whereas, yeah, I mean, I don't even think we recognize this, but, again, like just to bring it back to this sort of metaverse idea, I mean, Microsoft bought Minecraft, what, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and has seen, an opportunity to, again, introduce, kids into, these concepts and in building in a digital space and interacting in digital space in a way that, is only going to serve them really well, I think, in the future when these, the kids growing up on Minecraft are adults, because, they'll have been fully acculturated in this, they'll have a sense of these things. And I think ultimately, it's not that they're going to like naturally then just, become, like move their, their companies onto the, Microsoft cloud necessarily, but just that, they're already sort of in this, digital space. They're, it just, has benefits for, I think Microsoft overall, that they're making those kind of bets. And again, I think it'd be very easy to be like, oh, what is this thing? Like, what does it really matter? And I think just not sort of, and again, like today, like as what everyone's talking about is, these kind of digital worlds. And so, so I think it's getting past those biases of, like, hey, this just doesn't seem as significant as, the other things we're doing, and being willing to make those bets and invest in it for the long term. Like I said, I mean, gaming is, 20 years old at Microsoft now, but it's starting to meaningfully, generate revenue. Like they're doing, subscription, based stuff. So they've been able to innovate on the business model and expand it beyond just, the consoles. And, that's all, again, I don't think they could have anticipated that in 2001, but they didn't have to, but because they didn't just sort of stifle it, in 2003 or 2005 or whatever, they're able to be in this position today.
Yeah, David, I think the amount of time my son spent on Minecraft on his Xbox during the pandemic probably contributed to part of their success.
Well, there you go.
And I'm sure many others like him were doing the same thing. Now, I know we're almost at time, and it seemed to have passed by really quickly because it was just such an exciting topic. But I think, you have prepared a few slides to, I think, just talk through some of the examples within the top 20 companies and so on, or top 50 companies, I should say. So any specific companies you wanted to focus on and call out sort of some of the key elements that we can learn from in terms of how we operate, how we think, and so on?
Sure. I hit on, I think, most of them, but I would just sort of, I think there are two others that I would flag. And one is Sequoia Capital, which is, generally, considered to be, one of the premier venture capital firms, and sort of goes back to, it's sort of, the beginnings really of, venture capital business, in the 1970s. And, they have, basically, particularly in the last couple of years, and even more overtly, really just in the last couple of weeks, like just completely rethought like all of the sort of orthodoxies of that business, which hasn't really meaningfully changed since its inception 40 plus years ago. And like there used to be things like, oh, you would never invest in like if you invest in a company Series A, you didn't want to necessarily lead at Series B because it would sort of signal that like, oh, they can't find anyone else who's interested in it, and you're just sort of propping up your own investment. And I think people have seen, well, now you want to like really sort of double down on companies you believe in for the future, and sort of get as big a stake as possible. That was, again, like not something that people were thinking about until just a couple of years ago. They I think also, over time, as we've seen in the last, again, probably 7-8 years, with the sort of blurring between public and private markets, that, like they have the opportunity again to be completely, disrupted by, Tiger Global and large kind of hedge funds, that are looking for, the kind of growth opportunities that, investing in startups, can provide. If you do it well. And so they were like, yeah, look, instead of just selling, our shares when one of our portfolio companies goes public, like, why don't we continue to hold on to them if we believe in these companies and their long-term, potential that way? And, these are companies like Zoom, where, we're sort of facilitating this conversation, and Square and things like that. Like, we should stick with it. And I think that's led to them, sort of basically, saying like, hey, this is, like we can't operate the way we operated 40 years ago. And I think that is, again, a lesson, for healthcare. It's a lesson, for every company, every industry, that, someone is going to come along and, want to do things differently. And, and that could completely upend, your business, no matter how venerable or respected you are. So, again, like you need to be on offense. Like you need to be thinking about this stuff first. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's, that's probably enough, and maybe we can take some questions or
sure.
Whatever y'all like.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, David.
No, thank you.
Thank you so much, David. That was fantastic. And actually, I did want to hear the Ben & Jerry's. What can healthcare learn from Ben & Jerry's? Please, I've been waiting. Please.
Well, it's not necessarily the eating more ice cream, but look, I think that what Ben & Jerry's has done for a long time is, one, like they really like, yeah, they wanted to make ice cream and they wanted to sell ice cream, but they also, sort of, again, have a larger, purview and care about, the world we live in, and are thinking about that in everything they do. And so like their entire, history is just stories of like, hey, we don't want to have, we don't want the ice cream. This 30 plus years ago, they were sort of on the vanguard of this idea of like, we don't want to use milk that, from cows that have been shot up with, particular hormones. And they, sort of not only refused to do it, but wanted to sort of let people know that like, we're not doing it. And that, sort of put them up against, these large, sort of agribusiness, companies. And they ultimately, won that fight. They sort of see the opportunity again to sort of connect with, their audience, around like, look, we care about certain issues. We're not, we are going to be, against, sort of war. We're going to, we care about climate change. They are, like obviously this COP26 is going on right now. Ben and Jerry's was overtly, pursuing ideas and finding ways to sort of, mitigate climate change and raise awareness around this again 20 years ago. And so, I think sort of knowing what you care about and leading with those values, and then finding ways to like achieve, those larger societal goals through, your business, and creating that, effectively like kind of a social good flywheel, I think is, really important. So, obviously in the health context, having, sort of these larger goals around, curing particular diseases or mitigating the effects of particular conditions, and, letting that sort of be your, be your guide. And then, the process of whatever products or services you have sort of, moving towards, that larger goal, I think is a way for everyone to, to think about their business, and again, to lead with your values. And, and I think, again, more and more consumers like want to know that the companies they're going to patronize are companies that, share, share their point of view on, important issues in the world.
Great, thank you. So I did have a question that sort of gets to what you talked about. More and more people want to live their lives in the digital context, getting back to Minecraft and metaverse and all that. And that, sort of taking the always be on the offense comment that you said, being prepared, getting ready for this. And, healthcare really has not been that focused on digital. There's not a lot of work that has been done. It sort of came, sort of hit a wall quickly when COVID happened. And it does take time to get up to speed. So the question I have both for Shwen and David is that, what is your sense that a really non-traditional healthcare player will come in and be the one that disrupts healthcare? What are your thoughts on that? Sort of like the way Airbnb disrupted the hotel chain, or Uber disrupted the taxi service, really a non-traditional player getting in there.
Shwen, do you want to go first?
Sure. I think my immediate response is, I think looking at some recent historical context, you will see healthcare is hard to break into. It's a very complex industry. And so, we had that Amazon, Berkshire Hathaway, JPM type combination, which you would imagine some of the most amazing minds, some of the richest people in the world coming together to try and fix healthcare. They couldn't do it. We had other big tech companies. I mean, a lot of the big tech companies are now partly health companies, right? Digital health companies. But there are some, they've changed their investments, and they've adapted to doing things slightly differently, like Google, who decided that their health organization was not the right thing and have reorganized as a result of that. So, I think there is a chance that will happen, but I think the healthcare industry is complex and has a lot of different players with a lot of motives and a lot of investments in them in their individual verticals, but you need the entire connection to work. And therefore, a non-healthcare player coming into completely disruptive space has to understand how all those things work together, and has to have the sequence of events work very well to really make healthcare succeed in this space. And therefore, I think it's actually going to be very difficult, but how about the combination of a healthcare company and a non-healthcare company coming together to try and solve that? Maybe. I think that's got a much better chance.
Great. David, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I think inevitably, I think we've seen, basically every large, sector, of the economy, is one that, the sort of tech industry and is interested in trying to, upend, in its fashion, in an effort to, sort of get to, the sort of, multi, sort of $1 trillion, opportunity. I think we've seen so far, most of that has been, not terribly effective, at least certainly on the high end. I think what I would say is that, if I were in the healthcare space, I would just be very, sort of hyper aware of those things that, do not seem like that big a deal, but that could, over time, sort of erode, their position or, certainly necessitate, again, like that idea of trying to be very, on offense, again, not, on defense. But, if you think about, a few years ago, like there was no opportunity for me to, basically just go to a website and, buy, sort of off patent, medication with, a virtual doctor, signing off on it, and now that's, a thing, and there are public companies, that are doing that. And I think that, that's the, in the same way that, again, 10 years ago, like I wasn't getting in a stranger's, car to, take me somewhere without knowing that person was licensed, by, whatever municipality, to take me, from point A to point B. Right. So I do think there are things like that, those kind of inroads that have the, potential to sort of erode, I think some of the opportunity of, trust and, sort of protecting privacy and, and there being that measure of again, of care, of empathy, as Xuan was saying earlier, that could go by the wayside if everything is sort of mediated in a digital fashion. So, I think, you need to meet customers where they are, I think there's an opportunity for, embracing digital in a way to, sort of be there for customers in between visits or to facilitate things where, it might be difficult, to visit and, and sort of forge, a better relationship, have more data that, sort of is longitudinal so that you can offer better care, on an ongoing basis or manage a chronic condition. And, and I think the more that I think the traditional industry, if you will, embraces those ideas, then it does sort of foreclose opportunities for them to, again, get disrupted by, things that might seem innocuous at first, but, I think over time, could end up, becoming the status quo.
David, so you get into a stranger's car to go to a stranger's house to stay in nowadays.
Well, yeah, again, right. Like none of that in 2010, you would sound, science fiction, right? So I do think that sort of thing can happen, in health, and it would, probably, again, like erode a lot of the trust, that people have, in what they're taking, whatever. We're already seeing some of that in things that are, sort of vetted and generally accepted as safe. And so, I think, again, like there's opportunity there, and it shouldn't, be just in like trying to sort of thwart those companies from existing or doing what they do, but finding ways to, sort of orthogonally close off, their opportunity, potentially, and some of that could be by acquisition, again, strategically, seeing the opportunity to meld the two together, like you were saying.
Great, thank you. And then Xuan, you did such a great job interviewing David, but I want to maybe leave it with you. Do you have anything that you're truly excited about for the future and in healthcare innovation?
Well, I will say, if there's one thing the pandemic taught us is that when there is a need and regulations change and reimbursement changes and so on, and when all the factors are right, we can really get together and accelerate digital innovation or innovation as a whole to really make healthcare work. I mean, look at the examples that David gave with Moderna and Pfizer BioNTech and the vaccines they created. Look at the number of digital health digital therapeutic companies that got approvals. Look at the number of digital health investments that were made this year. Like suddenly everything accelerated because the need was there. The regulations changed, the reimbursements changed, and suddenly we can do that. It's possible, but a lot of factors need to come together and align. And I think now we can see the benefit of doing that. So I think there is a really bright future ahead of us because we've tasted a little bit of it now, because we can see what it can do for us.
That's great. I absolutely agree with you on that point. But David Schwen, thank you so much for joining us today. It was great to have you. And we hope we can do this again next year.
Great. Thank you for having us.
All right. Thank you so much again. That was so informative. And now I'm going to pass it along to my colleague, Ava Asghari, and she will take us to the second part with our startup showcase. Go for it, Ava.
Thank you, Jennifer. And thank you again to one of our champions at BMS, Bristol Myers Squibb, Schwen, and to David for that incredible and very relevant discussion. And thank you all again for being here today. My name is Ava, and I run our Health Accelerator program here in the US. I'm thrilled to be coming to you live here at headquarters in Silicon Valley. I'll be your MC for the startup portion of our Health Expo. So for the last 2.5 months, we had these following 15 startups go through our health program. These were startups selected by our corporate partners, which Jennifer mentioned to you all earlier, and they're going to share who they are, what they do, and how they can potentially help you, all in a span of about 4 minutes. Before we kick off the startup pitches, there's just a few things I'd like to mention. So one is our team is available to answer any questions you might have, so feel free to drop them in the chat box. And two, we also want to give everyone in the audience a chance to meet our startups. So after each pitch, you'll see a poll pop up on your screen. If you see a startup pitch that you love what they do, and you'd like to be introduced to their team, then mark yes in the poll, and we'll make sure that that connection happens. We're also going to be doing a People's Choice Award at the very end. So pay close attention to the startup pitches. After all the startups have presented, we're going to launch a poll where you can vote on your favorite startup. We're going to tally up those votes and announce our People's Choice Award winner on our social media channels. So be sure to follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn. Okay, so now for what you've all been waiting for, let's jump right into the startup presentations. First up, we have the Snapback, the all-in-one evidence-based postpartum community mothers need. Let's give it up for Pinky Patel, CEO and founder of the Snapback.
Hi, I'm Dr. Pinky Patel, CEO, founder of the Snapback. We've built the only all-in-one evidence-based postpartum app and community moms need. In pregnancy, there are ample resources, apps, and access to healthcare professionals. Someone is holding your hand daily until delivery. Imagine jumping off a cliff while someone holds your hand and then they let go halfway, but you end up at the bottom alone with a baby. That's postpartum. The average time between delivery and the postpartum visit is 6 weeks, which is actually a long time if you've had daily support. 40% of women don't even make it to this appointment. After 6 weeks of sedentary living and navigating one of the most profound physical and psychological shifts a woman can experience, we're cleared to resume activity. 9 months of creating life, readjusting organs, can't be solved in one 15-minute appointment. Postpartum is one of the most overwhelming period in a mother's journey. In fact, 52% of maternal deaths happen in postpartum. This quick and vague clearance leads to long-term issues like incontinence, pain with intercourse, back pain, and abdominal separation. 95% of women experience some type of physiological issue that impedes their quality of life. The Snapback app is an evidence-based tool that has been reviewed by gynecologists and physical therapists. The rehab techniques are specific to each mother's type of delivery. The app features articles that are time-released and weekly insights for both mom and baby. The tracking features on the app allow parents and caretakers to track bowels, feedings, journal. One of our most unique features is our anonymous form that allows mothers to connect without judgment. I hold a doctorate in pharmacy, and I'm a certified pre- and postnatal fitness trainer. I had such a challenging postpartum experience that I was compelled to create a solution that would support every mother after me. This is what the beta app looks like on the iOS and Google Play Store in 166 countries. Here's a glimpse. Currently, the app has content for 3 months. We offer the app on a subscription basis on 3 tiers, 1 month for $30, 3 months for $75, and 12 months for $240. Based on the feedback of our community, there is great interest in an effective stretch mark cream and postnatal vitamin. The cream has been sourced and is ready to manufacture. These are markets that we are eager to grow into. 3.8 million babies were born in the US alone last year. This is going to rise this year. Based on a recent study, birthing moms spend an average of $3,100 on themselves in the first year. Our total addressable market includes postpartum moms with an average income of $40,000 or above, with a size of 3.8 million as of 2020. In 18 months of an entirely organic outreach, we generated $60K in revenue. Our conversion rate averages from 15% from free to paid. We performed a 4-week ad campaign to test capital efficiency with our current product. With $3,000 in marketing spend, we decreased our CPI from $6.65 to $1.61. Utilizing our most popular plan of $75 and being conservative with our gross profit, we calculated an LTV to CAC ratio of 5.5 times. Users spend an average of 15 minutes in the app daily, and they're extremely engaged in our social media communities. Here's the competitor landscape that consists of apps that offer individual features, but none that are all inclusive. With additional funding, we can increase the content in the app to extend our user retention from 3 months to 12, among the others that are listed here. We would also integrate our first product to add to the subscription model. Our growth is reflected in the 372% year-over-year increase from 2019 to 2020. We are not only capital efficient, but we are recommended and have repeat mothers. The world creates tech for the future. It's time we create tech for moms who birth the future. Thank you.
Wonderful. So you should now see a poll pop up on your screen. We'll do this for every startup until the very end. So if you'd like an introduction to the Snapback and any of the following startups, feel free to mark yes in that poll. So on to the next. Next up, we have Odea. Odea is transforming the future of work and productivity for pharma commercial teams. So let's give it up for Philip, the CEO and co-founder of Odea.
Hi, everyone. My name is Philip Politis, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Odea, where we're transforming the future of work and productivity for pharma commercial teams. The commercialization of therapeutics is a highly inefficient and extremely costly part of pharma's product lifecycle. This is the case across all therapeutic areas, but especially for rare diseases, where identifying patients and the clinicians treating them is a daunting task. Once-a-year territory segmentation and planning exercises, together with broad strokes sales and marketing tactics, are no longer efficient nor effective. This became even more evident during the global pandemic. Pharma currently spends over $20 billion in the US alone on sales and marketing directly to physicians annually. Sales teams refer to multiple data sets and self-administered spreadsheets for their planning. Marketing teams are not accurately measuring the effectiveness of each omni-channel activity to outcomes. To address these problems head-on, we developed Maptual, a SaaS platform that helps pharma companies predict patient and physician behaviors and allocate resources in a targeted way while measuring the effectiveness of all commercial activities to outcomes. As described here by Reina, a commercial director at Janssen, Maptual is a powerful targeting tool for the sales team, as well as an enabler for marketing teams. Under the hood, we bring together internal data sets as well as external data sources and have engineered over 250 features into Maptual's AI, including predictive prescription transactions, predictive patient journeys, socioeconomic and population demographic trend predictions, omni-channel attribution measurements, and many more. All of this is delivered in a simple-to-use web-based SaaS platform for sales, marketing, and commercial operations teams. Our platform can also integrate AI outputs developed by our pharma customers' data science teams. With 3 years of R&D within the University of Toronto, Together with 2 years of product development as an independent company, and only 1 month since launching our flagship solution, MapTool, we have secured nearly 1 million in annual recurring revenue bookings, attained an active pipeline with initial annual contracted value of 8.4 million, engaged with leading global pharmaceutical companies, and expanded within 2 top 10 pharma companies across multiple brands and geographies. And we have a team that can execute. Our leadership is comprised of serial entrepreneurs with multiple successful exits, pharma industry executives, marketing experts, scientists, and academics. We know how to bring complex technology to market at scale. Our customers love us, and we're expanding beyond our initial engagements. These are some quotes from users of our platform representing sales, marketing, commercial operations, and executives at leading pharma companies. And finally, we are mission-driven. We help pharma companies bring life-altering therapeutics to the patients that need them in the most efficient ways possible, allowing them to divert some of those savings back into patient care and drug discovery. Thank you for your time and consideration, and we look forward to working with you as we help transform the future of work for pharma commercial teams.
Wonderful, and thank you to the Odea team. So next up, we have Ready Health. We actually recently made an investment in Ready Health, so they're a portfolio company. They're an Ohio-based startup on a mission to empower polychronic patients to take control of their health journey. So let's give it up for Ready Health.
Hello everyone, my name is Luke Buchanan and I am the co-founder of Ready Health, and today we'll be going over Ready's novel approach to empowering patients of complex chronic profiles to manage their health through technology and creating significantly increased engagement and connectivity with the highly impactful pharma patient support programs that can so greatly benefit their health journey. So the problem that Ready is aiming to solve is twofold, and it all stems from pharma investing significant dollars in their patient support programs, but patient adherence remaining lower than it could be. And so that stems from 2 particular areas. And the first one is standard patient engagement practices today are technologically antiquated and burdensome for patients. It doesn't integrate well into their daily life and health regimen. But on top of that, that daily health regimen that a patient is managing is already so difficult to allow anything to integrate through because of a lack of centralized health tools. And that's where Ready comes in as the solution. So our health management platform provides enrolled patients and non-enrolled targeted patients with very simplified and impactful lifestyle tools that are applicable for every medication and every condition a patient might have, which supercharges the engagement opportunities with any partner that's integrated. And in this case, that's pharma support. The result here is an increased engagement due to Ready's tools with the integrated pharma support, which leads to an increase in total health adherence, which is simply the idea that we can't focus on one medication to improve adherence. We have to focus on a patient's overall profile. And with Ready, we can do that. And the reason we can do that is because Ready does address every aspect of a patient's health while going deep in the therapeutic area through your integrated support. I won't read these individually, but it's just an example of some of our features that create that high engagement. Everything from Curator, a robust technology around AI that serves up very unique information to patients based on their profile, all the way to various trackers that allow a patient to understand their own health and communicate seamlessly with their healthcare provider. Speaking of engagement, let's take a look at some actual numbers. So Ready has conducted several pilots with qualified patients to understand the type of engagement these tools bring on a weekly basis. What we see on average is between 12 and 20 weekly engagements per patient. That varies greatly depending on therapeutic area, but this is potentially up to 80 monthly opportunities for engagement with any sort of support that you've integrated. In-app messaging tagged as sponsored saw great open rates well above the 50 percentage point mark, and month-over-month adherence increased. Rates tracked in the MedTracker tool that we offer saw an increase of 8 percentage points to 14 percentage points depending on the therapeutic area. And so what this means is your integrated support not only benefits from this increased engagement, but actually becomes part of it. And so when you partner with Ready, we can do everything in terms of a patient management center, from dedicated messaging to any integration with a vendor, custom trackers, static material, all the way to integrated BIs and financial assistance. Really anything your strategy has, we can align to. But what does this look like in action? Well, let's do a quick demo for Drug X with the pharma manufacturer, Pharma Plus. So Patient would sign in like they would with any other platform. Right away, they engage with our high engagement tools, everything from weekly exercise tracking to the educational message center. Again, for all medications and all conditions, med tracker, symptom tracker, all that available to the patient to create that high engagement. But what's right next to those support tools that are so beneficial to the patient is the particular farm manufacturer's support center. So there's that message center that I spoke about, could be asynchronous for education, could be integrated with your hub support to communicate with the patient, custom trackers, financial assistance, even the ability for patients to request a call. All of this is just an example, but what I'll leave you with is our total health tools create that high engagement with your support, which leads to a greater adherence lift. We are fully funded, having just closed our seed round and contracting with our first pharma deal, but looking for more early co-innovative partners that would have significant influence over the product's direction and long-term economic benefit from pricing. Again, I'm Luke Buchanan with Ready Health. Thank you.
Wonderful. And thank you to the Ready Health team. Again, there's a poll that's popped up on your screen. So if you'd like an introduction to this startup or you'd like to meet with them, feel free to mark yes. So next up, we have Playback Health. Playback is a clinical multimedia creation and communication platform that connects patients and providers and elevates the patient-provider experience. Let's give it up for Playback Health.
Hi, I'm Greg Odlin, CEO and co-founder of Playback Health. It's been proven that when patients feel cared for, they adhere to doctors' instructions, have speedier recoveries, and fewer hospital readmissions. But too often, empathy and compassion get lost in the care delivery process. Data says that physicians miss approximately 70% of the opportunities to respond to patients with compassion. But the problem isn't that clinicians lack empathy or compassion. The problem is communication gets lost. Communicating and remembering care instructions is hard, and it's costly when missed. Patients forget what the doctor or nurse said, misunderstand instructions, or feel unheard themselves. Clinicians are overwhelmed and overworked and reliant upon antiquated communication methods or transactional-based interactions. Empathy and compassion get lost. Playback Health is a new way of communicating care. Playback captures the moment of care, helps to deepen the patient-provider bond, and enables superior communication, leading to a better patient experience and improved care outcomes. Playback's technology seamlessly connects patients and providers in the most empathetic, effective, and engaging way so that the moment of care can be saved, shared, and replayed. With Playback, clinicians can curate medical information from the patient's medical record, create personalized care instructions using video, audio, images, text, and documents, and easily share with patients, family members, and other care professionals wherever they are. But Playback isn't just a new way to communicate. It also introduces a new concept of a personal mobile medical record. Playback sits atop hospital systems of record, adding value, empathy, and engagement at every level. All content is stored in the cloud for secure access by patients and their families, or hospital billing systems, to provide excellent patient experience and help grow revenue. With Playback Health, a single update updates everyone. It is the only technology that allows the patient to see and hear the care from their care team. Patients can review the same information again and again from their provider, anytime they need it, and they will feel the same care every time. The results have been outstanding. Thanks to Playback, Lenox Hill Hospital reported their best patient experience scores in a decade. Lenox Hill Neurosurgery saw their patient satisfaction rankings set new highs at 99% for doctor communication, patient understanding, and overall satisfaction with care. The rehab team at Glen Cove Hospital say using Playback saves therapists 30 minutes a day, and patients have no gaps in treatment understanding or adherence. What matters most is how patients feel. We are committed to humanizing the healthcare experience for everyone. We have a dedicated team with years of experience across SaaS, healthcare, finance, and sales. The Playback Health team embodies the values of our mission: purpose, passion, integrity, and perseverance. We're building a patient-centered, personalized health record that effortlessly amplifies empathy and compassion at every point, for everyone. And we're doing it every day. I hope you'll join us. I'm Greg Odlin, CEO and co-founder of Playback Health. Thank you.
Wonderful. And thank you, Greg and the Playback Health team. So next up, we have Amalgam Rx. Amalgam Rx is a digital platform for SaaS-enabled solutions that connects healthcare providers and life science companies. Let's give it up for Amalgam Rx.
I'm Ryan Sisko, the CEO and founder of Amalgam Rx. Amalgam is a digital marketplace and product platform that really sits at the center of healthcare innovation. As we know, in the pandemic, new care delivery models have had to be accelerated. The adoption of technology is really required for patients and providers to collaborate to get better outcomes. Amalgam really seeks to be the connective tissue, bringing together all of the players in the ecosystem, so patients, providers, payer, and life sciences companies, and enable them to do their jobs better and to make meaning of data and transform it into significant outcomes. We have, on the digital product side, a library of validated assets that enable us to quickly develop and deploy regulated solutions. We are ISO 13485 certified and also SOC 2 Type 2 certified. We have products that are cleared by regulatory agencies in the US, Europe, South America, and soon in Asia. And for us, the products that we build are really an opportunity for clinicians to extend their clinical voice and support patients outside of the office. We have an insulin titration application that we've licensed to Novo Nordisk, and they operate on a global basis. That product will be in upwards of 10 markets in the next 12 months, really helping patients by enabling them to follow their provider's titration treatment plan for basal insulin. We also have programs in oncology and hematology and other therapeutic areas. One of the real unique differentiators for Amalgam is that we can put these digital solutions and place them directly at the center of provider workflow. So our digital tools can be integrated into Epic, Cerner, Allscripts, and Athena. In addition to enabling sort of one-click ordering of our digital products and allowing providers to manage patient self-management data from the EHR, we also have the opportunity to support provider decision-making across and helping them close care gaps, reduce risks, and reduce costs. When we're integrated inside the EHR, we get access to all of the data. We're able to keep a de-identified set of that data. So we have about 7 billion real-world data points on 4 million patients today and growing. When you combine that with our digital product data, we think we have one of the more unique data sets in healthcare. So at Amalgam today, we have 4 core products: decision support, helping providers at the point of care; patient ID, which is helping support life sciences companies by integrating algorithms into the EHR to identify the right products for the right patients; our digital products, which I talked about earlier; and our data analytics. So if I do a quick demonstration here of how our solution works, I'm showing you the Athena EHR. This patient, when we're installed, we sit within the decision support framework inside of Athena. It works the same way for other EHRs, or very similar. We can see everything about this patient. So we know their problem list. This patient has diabetes and hypertension. We can see the medications that this patient's on. This patient's on 3 diabetes medications. We can also see their lab results. So for example, this patient's last A1C was 9, or it's high. So what happens is, if a provider reorders a medication, we sit in the assessment and planning section. And when that order gets added to the EHR, there's a handshake between Athena and Amalgam, and we have the ability to show the provider decision support. So in this case, we've shown 2 recommendations. The one is that maybe the provider wants to start the patient on basal insulin. We can show the provider the evidence to support our recommendation. We can also allow the provider, if we know the formulary, to go ahead and just add Lantus, if that's the preferred insulin, to the patient's order. When that happens, we can keep giving additional support. So in this case, we may recommend our insulin titration application, iSage, and with one click, the provider can order iSage and get directly into our portal to prescribe it. It brings over the patient's information and makes it really simple for a provider to use a digital tool. We can bring all of that data back into the provider's EHR to enable them to manage the patient and optimize their care. So this is a quick demonstration of our products and our technologies. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you to the Amalgam Rx team. So that marks the end of our patient experience and patient engagement category. So now let's go into the next category on clinical tools and training. So we have 2 startups in this category. And next up, we have Singularity AI, another one of our portfolio companies. So Singularity makes sharing and interactive analysis of large and complex scientific and medical images easy, accurate, and lag-free. So let's give it up for Singularity.
Is AI-driven insights a reality for medical innovation? Well, not for the majority of healthcare and life science professionals. They have limited time, budget, resources for implementation, and the complexity of the privacy issues of medical data further compound the challenge. We at Singularity AI are working to change that. We develop 1 platform, 2 edge devices, and 3 solutions with many deep learning algorithms. Our customers can analyze medical and life science images and multimodal datasets to gain AI-driven insights. 99% of the pathologists in the world are working with microscopes, not full digital solutions such as whole slide scanners. We also built real-time AI analysis into a microscope camera so that they can benefit from AI without disrupting their current workflow. They can collaborate interactively and effectively across disciplines, institutions, and borders as if they're in the same room, collaborate using our federated learning AI solutions to preserve data privacy and ownership. They can create deep learning algorithms to accelerate medical innovation. How we can make AI a reality? By making our solutions accessible, effective, and secure. In rural China, 1 pathologist is serving hundreds of miles covering from extremely rare infectious disease to metastatic lung cancer. Our system, Alert Lung Cancer, connects patients with experts to get proper care, which otherwise would be impossible. In US and Europe, our customers participate in the multimodal deep learning projects using our federated learning AI solution to make sure their data stay local and safe. Why we can make AI a reality? Because we have a unique positioning, use the right technology for the right task, and secure data access. By using our products, our customers are starting to benefit from AI. For life sciences, it means reaching more data, facilitating faster development, and bringing new diagnostics to the majority. For providers, it means adopting technologies easier, cheaper, and faster, and providing more new treatments to patients earlier. Our unique approach creates huge opportunities for us. Our products resonate well with our customers in US, China, Europe, and India. We have built a coherent go-to-market strategy and on track to achieve a scalable future. Singularity AI is a plug-and-play portfolio company. Our team has deep expertise in medtech. We come together to make AI analytics a broader reality.
Wonderful. Thank you to Hui and the Singularity AI team. So up next, we have a mental health company called Mindberry. Mindberry helps clinicians identify the most effective mental health treatment for each patient and remotely monitor their progress and treatment options. So let's give it up for Mindberry.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mahan Salehi, and I'm the co-founder of Mindberry, a virtual mental health assistant for primary care physicians. Mindberry was inspired by her friend Jessie. Jessie suffered from a mental illness, and she was given different medications on a trial and error basis by her primary care physician. She kept getting worse until finally reaching the point of hospitalization. Unfortunately, stories like Jessie's are far too common in our healthcare system today. This is because primary care physicians lack the tools, the training, and the time to properly diagnose and treat patients with mental health disorders. And yet, primary care physicians are the ones who are treating the majority of common mental illnesses. For example, they prescribe 80% of all antidepressants in the US. Unfortunately, half of all patients get misdiagnosed by their primary care physician, and 70% of them will get the wrong treatment initially. On average, the physician will have to switch medications 3 different times before finding the right treatment. This is why we're building Mindberry, a HIPAA-compliant AI assistant that empowers primary care physicians to better treat mental illness. Mindberry is like a digital psychiatrist that sits in on the patient visit. It transcribes the conversation, helps with diagnosis, and finds the right treatment for every patient. First, Mindberry uses AI to transcribe the conversation, as can be seen on the left side of the Mindberry dashboard. It then summarizes the notes, shown in the middle. Secondly, Mindberry passively screens every patient by detecting subtle and direct cues of mental illness. After detecting enough symptoms, Mindberry alerts the physician that the patient is at risk and begins doing differential diagnosis by scanning through the DSM-5. It also suggests follow-up questions to help confirm the diagnosis. Finally, to avoid trial and error treatment, Mindberry scans through clinical psychiatric guidelines to find the right treatment for each patient based on their symptoms and patient profile. Some of our competitors focus solely on transcription like Nuance, but they don't help with diagnosis nor with treatment selection. Then there are generic decision support tools like UpToDate. These solutions are like Wikipedia for doctors, and they require reading lengthy articles and don't personalize treatment for each patient. Finally, there are some decision support tools that are specific to mental health, but they don't provide transcription and they require manual data entry to function, which is too time-consuming according to dozens of physicians that we've spoken to. This is why we've designed Mindberry as a virtual assistant. We combine real-time transcription with a clinician decision support tool, which is an emerging area of AI-augmented healthcare. For payers, our solution saves thousands in medical costs by preemptively identifying at-risk patients and reducing their time to recovery. For providers, we increase efficiency and save them time by transcribing notes. And for pharmaceuticals, we increase exposure for new and effective therapies. We also provide data analytics on medication usage, efficacy, and side effects, and this data can then be used to better understand drug profiles and develop new and novel treatments. Currently, we have 20 physicians signed up for early access, and we're targeting a pilot with United Health Services after finishing our alpha. We are testing our MVP in Q4, and in a year's time, we're aiming to have over 1,000 physicians using Mindberry, generating $100,000 in MRR. Our CTO, Daniel, has previously worked as an AI scientist and has published research on treatment-resistant depression. And I previously worked on mental health chatbots and was at NVIDIA as a product manager building advanced conversational AI. Our advisory board consists of experts in primary care, psychiatry, and pharmacogenetics. We are currently seeking pilot partnerships with providers, and we would also love to connect with any physicians and healthcare advisors in the audience as well. We're Mindberry, and we're on a mission to help people like Jesse. Thank you.
Awesome, and thank you to the Mindberry team. So next, we're going to dive into our next topic, which is chronic disease management. So we have 2 startups in this space. So let's give it up for our first startup, Cancer Insights, which is a real-time, intelligent, and learning health platform for oncology decision support.
Cancer Insights is a real-time, intelligent, and learning health platform for oncology decision support. It's built at the intersection of interoperability, artificial intelligence, and innovative clinical workflows. Hi, my name is Tarun Kumar, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Cancer Insights. I started this company in May 2018 in collaboration with my 2 co-founders. I spent 15 years in IBM research developing innovative technologies and spun a company for wind turbine forecasting. This company was sold in 2017 for $100 million. With over $3.7 trillion in economic costs for chronic care, cancer accounts for about $1 trillion. This translates to about 1.7 million newly diagnosed patients each year. The high economic cost is due to siloed data, both within and between the hospital system, that result in inefficient clinical workflows, redundant tests and procedures, and delays in treatments. Solving the data challenges with an innovative technology will lead to winning an estimated market size of $6 billion. Cancer Insights believes that the true transformation in healthcare hinges on seamless integration of medical data. Today, nurses spend about a week waiting to get faxed or paper medical records. Tests are often repeated because timely action is needed. To address these issues, Cancer Insights has created a HIPAA-compliant and HITRUST certified oncology-focused platform that is the first of a kind in the industry. Cancer Insights' innovative record locator service not only fetches the available medical electronic data from all health systems, but transforms the information into a single integrated case summary. And this happens with just one click of a button. This 50x improvement in speed, coupled with deep case insights, transforms the clinical's approach to treating the patient. With Cancer Insights' next-generation multidisciplinary tumor board workflow, meetings are transformed from paper and PowerPoint management to a digital collaboration. Large health systems doing tens of tumor boards a week can now deploy an organization-wide process that standardizes tumor board reporting, captures data for accreditation and CME tracking, and decreases preparation, reporting time, and the effort and perform the second opinion. Cancer Insights Encounter Note workflow transform a clinical note documentation process. This innovation introduces a click-through, structured capture of encounter with complete codification of all medical parameters, thereby reducing a clinical effort by 12 times. The tool introduces an automated CMS, MDM, and time-based billing recommendation engine, a billing audit documentation, and an electronic signature workflow. Cancer Insights is an innovative company delivering breakthrough products. We have recently won an NCI SBIR grant to take national treatment guidelines from a paper-based atlas to a Google Map-like technology. Once developed, this innovative technology will transform how clinicians use AI as a decision support tool to choose treatment plans and work with payer requirements. Cancer Insight is also working with a number of oncology centers, including NCI-designated comprehensive care centers, to collect the key performance metrics and help drive care for patients and improve clinical job satisfaction. The future of healthcare is now, and Cancer Insights, through its innovative technology, is helping realize this future. Thank you.
Wonderful, and thank you to the Cancer Insights team. So up next, we have Lapis Health. Lapis Health is a culture-first digital health treatment to safely and sustainably reverse heart disease without medication or surgery. So let's give it up for Lapis Health.
We're here from Lapis Health. I'm the founder and CEO, and at Lapis, we're on a mission to reverse heart disease. I'm sure most of us are familiar with the grim statistics around heart disease and how much of a growing problem it is. Just to provide a little bit more context to that, about 647,000 Americans die from heart disease every year. And what's even more sad and frightening is over 50% of the deaths are people of color. This is a statistic that I'm all too familiar with and something that hits close to home. About 2.5 years ago, my brother, the age of 36, passed away from heart disease in his sleep. His death had a devastating impact on me and my family. And what's even sadder and really what's scary is his story is far too common in communities of color. Too many of us have had to say goodbye to loved ones when we're just not ready. But beyond this personal story, here's just a little bit more numbers to give some more context. We're 2 to 4 times more likely to die from heart disease, 12 times more likely to die from COVID-19 due to our underlying heart condition, and twice as likely to have a second heart disease incident. Kaiser came out with a recent study that said 1 in 4 African Americans has some form of heart disease or hypertension. This has all contributed to an epidemic of heart disease happening in communities of color. But beyond this epidemic, there's also the financial implications and burden of heart disease. It is the most expensive chronic condition to treat, costing over $18,000 per patient per year. And the biggest drivers of this cost are ER visits, hospitalizations, and medications. So one of the things we have to solve at Lapis is how can we solve this problem, both from the epidemic side of view and the financial burden that it creates. And the first thing we have to acknowledge is that current treatments are failing because of the inherent racial bias in digital health treatments, where they don't take into account the different and diverse needs of different populations, and we're currently underserved. So that's one thing we wanted to do and to build a solution that targets the needs of diverse and underserved populations. And in order to do this, we are taking the work of our Chief Medical Officer, Michelle Rothenstein, which is clinically validated, where she's been able to help 96% of her patients reduce their blood pressure and 70% achieve medication reduction in a 3 to 4 months period, and has been proven to lower blood pressure by between 10 to 30 milligrams. So we're taking that work and digitizing it, providing it at scale, and making it culturally competent to fit the needs of diverse and underserved populations whose needs are not currently met. So the product works in 4 simple ways. One, and this is just again a general overview, is we have a simple onboard intake form to validate the patient's risk factors as where they are in terms of their lifestyle and things like nutrition, exercise, stress management, and smoking cessation and sleep. We then create a culture-first personalized treatment plan that's based on their lifestyle, that's based on on things where they live, rather than just informing them. We take into account different factors that affect their daily lives. Consists of daily guided micro habit nudges, and all of this is within a 12-week program to lower and normalize blood pressure. This is a massive market opportunity. It's worth over $146 billion. And we believe, looking at our pricing model and where we're going on the size of the market, this is a $2 billion opportunity for Lapis. Bringing this product to life is a team with over 30 years of experience in combining cardiac health and mobile product development. For myself as a behavior designer, Carl Swanson as chief of engineering, and Michelle Rothenstein as a cardiology clinician whose work Lapis is based on. Our revenue model is to sell through payers through an outcome-based model where we put 100% of our fees upfront and we don't get paid until we meet key clinical and patient engagement outcomes, which we discuss with the payers, anything from normalization of blood pressure to engagement of daily activities. Traction so far, since we started with Plug and Play, we've got over 2,000 plus users on our waiting list, an 80% engagement rate as we're beta testing with 100 users monthly, partnership engagements, and 2 upcoming outcome-based pilots. Here's also a snapshot of the testimonials we've got from patients about what they've gotten so far from working with Michelle. Really one of our big things is improving the ROI payers we get as they're able to achieve 75% in cost savings due to the reduction in heart disease related treatments and cost of medications. As well as our competition, the thing we stand out on is we're culturally competent and we're clinically validated based on the work our Chief Medical Officer has done. To round things up, why Lapis? We're culturally competent, clinically validated, a great team, a massive market opportunity, and an impact to solve the leading cause of deaths in the US and eliminate health disparities in underserved communities. Our ask today is twofold. Looking for partnerships with health organizations interested in piloting the Lapis treatment with your member population, as well as we're raising a $500,000 round to help get us to first revenue to 3 to 5 partnerships and refine the product. Thank you so much, and I hope you join us on a mission to reverse heart disease.
Wonderful, and thank you to the Lapis Health team. So now we're going to dive into our next topic of early detection and diagnostics. We have another 2 startups in this category. So next up, we have Cognitivity Neurosciences. Cognitivity, they're developing an AI platform for early detection of cognitive impairment, dementia, and Alzheimer's disease. So let's give it up for Cognitivity.
Hello everyone, my name is Sina Habibi and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Cognitivity Neurosciences, spin out from Cambridge University, using latest neuroscience and artificial intelligence in order to detect neurodegeneration, in particular dementia. Dementia diagnosis begins with a cognitive test. These pen and paper, often memory-based cognitive tests are one of the reasons dementia is massively late and underdiagnosed. The tests are designed for later stages of the disease and they have limitation biases. They also can be learned over time, so they're not great for monitoring, and they have language, culture, and education biases. In line with this, we have invented a new technology, which we call it Integrated Cognitive Assessment, or ICA for short. ICA looks at information processing as a proxy to detect cognitive impairments. The test is very simple. As you can see on the screen, images come and go away for a very short period of time. If the participants see an animal in the image, they press on the right side as soon and as accurate as possible. And if they don't see an animal in the image, they press on the left side, again, as soon and as accurate as possible. And just like that, in a course of 5 minutes, we can detect impairment independent of culture, language, and education, without the need for healthcare professional, which makes it fully remotely accessible, and also without learning bias. One of the major breakthroughs in the space. Efficiency and simplicity of the ICA makes it a powerful end-to-end solution for delivery of new treatments, which is a huge unmet need. Recently, Bloomberg had a report that almost 90 million Americans found themselves eligible or thought they were eligible for aducanumab, recently approved drug by the FDA for Alzheimer's, from which only 2.4 million people are actually eligible. What we can do with our technology, we can detect those who are at risk via a web-based application, direct them to testing center, where we can take the clinical test from them and then refer them for full-on diagnosis. Post-diagnosis, and when intervention begins, we can use the technology for self-assessment and monitoring, which can be a powerful tool for clinicians in order to help with the treatment. We believe the ICA has all the characteristics in order to become the de facto cognitive assessment used in day-to-day clinical practice. The technology has been validated. We've got a very strong science base, publication in major peer-reviewed journals, including Nature. We are now CE marked and in commercial and clinical use within National Health Services of United Kingdom, and recently partnered with InterSystem, a major EHR solution provider, in order to make our technology integratable within different EHR systems. This is in order to make the use of the technology as seamless and as easy for our clinicians. We have also received our FDA just last month, and we've been blown away with a number of inquiries and interest. Over the last 2 weeks, we've had more than 1,000 inquiries, some of them from the biggest healthcare institutions in the US, which is quite exciting. ICA is a platform technology and can be used in multiple different avenues and solutions. It can be used in drug discovery. It can be used in treatment delivery, as we discussed earlier. It can be used as a powerful tool as an adjunct to other diagnostic methodologies in order to improve the diagnostic value. Also, as mentioned earlier, it's a monitoring tool for patients so they can self-assess and self-monitor themselves. That can be applied in a beyond the pill approach. When you have an intervention, you want to get the patients more engaged, which can improve the patient outcomes. Last but not least, we'd love to work with collaborators, and if you have any ideas or if you want to discuss any potential new solutions, we're more than happy to hear from you. Thank you very much again.
Wonderful, and thank you to the Cognitivity team and to Sina. So next up, we have Alva Health. Alva Health is developing a real-time wearable stroke monitor for older Americans living with high stroke risk. Let's give it up for Alva Health.
1 in 4 people over 25 are living with high risk of stroke. Ischemic stroke happens when a clot blocks an artery in your brain, preventing the flow of blood and oxygen. Unlike heart attack, which is sudden and immediately painful, stroke is more subtle. You may experience nothing more than a slight headache when in reality your brain tissue is rapidly deteriorating. 20% of people will die of stroke, and if you're one of the 80% who survive, imagine having to relearn how to walk, talk, and tie your shoes. In addition to the massive human cost, stroke results in over $67 billion in unnecessary healthcare spend each year due to the disability caused by treatment delay. The good news is that most of this can be prevented if patients are treated immediately after stroke onset using an FDA-approved therapy called TPA. But because stroke is so difficult to detect today, 90% of people do not get this life-saving therapy. Hi, I'm Dr. Sandra Saldaña, CEO and co-founder of Alva Health. Alva Health solution automates stroke symptom recognition using 2 wristbands, a smartphone app, and cloud-based monitoring with machine learning algorithms. We look for the signs of hemiparesis, one-sided paralysis that is a defining signature of stroke, and immediately notify the user. If there's no response within 2 minutes, we connect them with a trained medical responder who will call 911 and notify the user's emergency contacts. In early clinical studies, our patented medical device performed at a 97% true positive rate in moderate to severe strokes and a low false positive rate of 1 every 21 days. Our initial target consists of the 1.1 million people who are diagnosed with a stroke or a transient ischemic attack each year, because these patients are known to be in imminent risk of a recurrent event within 90 days. Since 2019, we've been backed by NSF and NIH, and just 3 months ago, we received a $1 million award from NSF to build our pre-production device, bringing our total non-dilutive backing to $1.6 million. We're moving quickly, and the industry is taking notice. We've received letters of interest from stroke neurologists who want to beta test our product with their patients, and I'm proud to announce that we were the recipient of the grand prize of $350,000 in this year's MedTech Innovator Competition, the world's largest competition for MedTech companies. We're launching our first prospective clinical trial next year, and we plan to apply for FDA clearance as a Class 2 de novo medical device in 2024. We expect to become commercially available later that year. We developed our technology out of Yale University, and I've assembled a powerhouse team that can build, validate, and sell this product. Dr. Hiten Saveri is a serial inventor of neurotechnologies. Dr. Kevin Sheth has validated numerous therapeutics and medical devices through the FDA, and I spent 5 years doing B2B sales in the med device industry. Join us on our mission to build a future in which all stroke victims will have access to life-saving therapies. Thank you.
Wonderful, and thank you to the Alpha Health team. So now we're going to go into our final category. So we have 5 startups in the pharma, drug R&D, and clinical trials space. So the first startup we're showcasing is called Quant Health. Quant Health is an AI-driven simulation platform for clinical trials and end-to-end drug development. So let's give it up for Quant Health.
Hello. We're here to tell you about our novel approach to clinical development using AI and real-world data. Drug development costs are skyrocketing, reaching over $2.5 billion per drug. And yet, over 90% of drugs that make it to the clinical setting fail. This amounts to a direct loss of about $45 billion each year. So why do so many clinical trials fail? Over 75% fail to demonstrate safety and efficacy as expected in the clinical trial. In some cases, it means that the molecule is simply not effective or safe enough, but in most cases, it's because the trial protocol was not properly aligned with the capabilities of the molecule. Fundamentally, this happens because we leave big gaps in research as we move from one phase to the next. For example, what works well in animal models and human tissue doesn't necessarily translate into the human body, let alone into a clinical trial. Quant Health has taken on itself to fill these gaps, using a dynamic simulation approach that lets pharma companies fail fast, fail early, and optimize for success. We're developing an application that allows the user to simulate thousands of variations for the clinical trial they are planning by modifying each parameter of a protocol, such as inclusion-exclusion criteria, cohort size, dosage, drug combination, and many more. To do this, we've compiled one of the largest preclinical data sets of over 100,000 therapeutics with rich PK/PD, tox, drug target, and drug-drug interactions, and combined it with one of the largest real-world data sets of over 350 million open claims, linked EMR, unstructured notes, and genomic data. Based on this data set, we use unsupervised machine learning to learn similarity patterns across drugs and patients, and supervised machine learning to learn patient-drug response patterns. By dynamically combining these models, we can predict patient-level outcomes within novel clinical scenarios like a clinical trial. In a recent case study of ours, we wanted to see how well our algorithm held up against a real clinical trial. We successfully backtested our algorithm against a historical trial called CLL8 that tested Roche's drug rituximab on CLL patients. We virtually recruited patients from our dataset, which matched the trial criteria, and predicted how each patient would respond to both the control and the experimental arms for the survival endpoint. Of course, we did this using only data that was available prior to the clinical trial. The results show that our simulation closely tracked the results of the actual clinical trial and could effectively be leveraged to test a variety of protocols and additional indications. With this technology, we can answer tactical questions regarding a drug's late-stage performance in humans as early as in the preclinical phase. As the pipeline matures, we can also answer more strategic questions around new directions and potential markets for the drug. Our goal is to build an end-to-end drug development platform that can support a pharma company throughout the entire drug development lifecycle while shortcutting the entire process. After only 1 year of operation, we've gained the trust and long-term partnership of several customers in the US and Europe and have booked over $1 million in revenue for the next year. We're looking for additional partners that are innovative and quick to adopt next-generation technologies. We're also raising capital and are happy to meet the right investors that can help accelerate our goals. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, and thank you to the Quant Health team. So up next, we have Simunom Ai. They're increasing clinical trial efficacy one disease at a time. So let's give it up for Simunom Ai.
Imagine knowing the likelihood of success of your drug development program before stepping into the lab. Due to the complexity of biological systems, predicting clinical trial outcomes is difficult, so researchers take a wait-and-see approach that leads to costly failures. As a result, the success rate is about 10%. In the last 3 years in Alzheimer's disease alone, companies have lost over $10 billion in combined cost and market value caused by late-stage failures. At Simunom, we develop AI-driven disease simulations to predict likely failures in the drug discovery process even before stepping into the lab. Our team consists of our CEO with a background in clinical research and computational biology, and over 5 years of experience in commercialization in pharma industry, myself with background in neuroscience, engineering, and machine learning, and Saba, whose background in deep learning and mathematical modeling. We also have advisors who are best in class in clinical research, business, and tech. As our computational models simulate the molecular interactions caused by the drug under testing, we're able to predict outcomes and hence de-risk clinical R&D. We combine data that includes millions of biological interactions, and then we use machine learning algorithms to learn the grammar of biological systems. We then apply these rules on disease-specific models to predict the outcome of a certain drug interacting with a disease network and hence predicting the probability of this drug being a good candidate or not. Despite the increase in AI-based approaches for drug development, most of the current approaches use black box techniques, which do not always account for biological order. Our models are transparent, honoring the causal relationships between biological events happening on the molecular level. With the increase of momentum, we have now completed validation of this model with 100% accuracy against past clinical trials in both Alzheimer's and melanoma. We signed on our first client, who is currently in phase 1 of clinical trial with the FDA, is leveraging our platform to characterize the mechanism of action of their therapy as requested by the regulatory authorities, and working on a pilot project with an academic lab. Being selected by experts in business and pharma industry to join Plug and Play was a huge validation step for us. To date, we've raised over $200,000 from non-dilutive funds. Our approach of replicating biological complexity allows us to focus on an underserved sector in AI biotechnology, where we simulate clinical trial outcomes and effects in their target patients. Altogether, this drives immense market potential. The clinical trial costs over $100 billion. Due to our focus on non-infectious diseases, we estimate that this amount to be addressable market of over $10 billion, of which we are forecast to attain 10% share by focusing on key research hubs. We are excited about our trajectory with our market-ready platform. We anticipate the next year will feature the increase in our user base, completion of a disease-agnostic platform, as well as attaining sales of $4 million. To get to escape velocity, we're seeking initiation of more pilots, client projects, as well as funding to increase our team size. In the last 3 months since we joined Plug and Play, we made significant progress. We added a new member to our tech team. We developed a go-to-market strategy and sales process with the help of a contract sales and marketing organization. We're now engaged in active conversations for a pilot project with one of the centers of excellence for precision medicine in oncology, and we developed a user-friendly interface for our product. At Simunom, we believe that the field is ready to disrupt old ways of black box science. We welcome you to join us at the leading edge of disruptors in this industry.
Wonderful, and thank you to the Simunom team. So up next, we have CellChorus. At CellChorus, they apply visual AI to evaluate how individual cells move, behave, and interact through thousands of videos. So let's give it up for CellChorus.
Hello, my name is Dan Meyer, CEO of CellChorus, the dynamic single-cell analysis company. We apply artificial intelligence to evaluate thousands of videos of individual cell-cell interactions to improve the development and delivery of immunotherapies based on function and performance. The development of cell-based and cell-modifying therapies requires that we understand that cells must move and interact and perform to fight disease. And in a given population of cells, there will be important differences. So it's not sufficient for us to evaluate a small number of cells individually, and it's not sufficient for us to evaluate a large number of cells in bulk. We need to evaluate a large number of cells at single cell resolution. Unfortunately, most of our customers have relied on bulk live cell imaging. This gives them information about the target or disease cells across the entire population. It does not tell our customers which of their cells are the best performers and why. At CellChorus, we place a small number of cells in each of thousands of nanowells and make videos of how those cells interact and perform. In this example, a green antigen-specific T cell is seen moving, contacting, killing, releasing, and repeating the process against cells expressing this COVID spike protein. We would quantify the performance of this T cell. We would also identify it as a serial killing T cell and can select this cell for downstream analysis. What this means for our customers is that instead of getting a small number of readouts across the entire population of target cells, they get detailed information about subpopulations of cells, individual interactions, and can also see example videos of the subpopulations or specific biology in action. Our initial customers were some of the leading customers in the industry, including one of the first companies with an approved CAR T cell therapy. The platform has also been validated across all the major cell therapy types and antibodies and has been featured in more than 15 peer-reviewed publications. There's been a massive trend from bulk analysis to single-cell analysis. In sequencing, we've seen massive growth and the impact it has had in genomics and transcriptomics. And more recently, we've seen the emergence of new single-cell proteomics platforms. CellChorus is the leader in dynamic single-cell analysis. I was the COO and a board member of Genospace, which was funded by Thomson Reuters and acquired by HCA Healthcare. Naveen developed the technology in the single-cell lab at the University of Houston, from which Mohsen got his PhD. Mohsen has more than 5 years experience with the platform and runs our lab. And our co-founder and board chair, Dr. Cooper, has an extremely strong academic, research, and clinical background, but also ran a public cell therapy company for more than 5 years. We're backed by Y Combinator and Breakout Ventures and a member of the current health batch at Plug and Play. We're raising seed capital to expand our list of customers, publish with key customers, and launch an instrument that can be used in other labs, including customers, partners, and CROs. We're also interested in speaking with companies that are developing cell therapies, antibodies, and vaccines. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you to Dan and the Cell Chorus team. So up next, we have a company called Nanome. So this is going to be the last company that's in our Batch 13 program for this fall. But don't worry, we have a special bonus startup, one more after this one. So Nanome is a virtual reality software that offers a collaborative VR platform for molecular modeling and structure-based drug design. So let's give it up for Nanome.
Hi, I'm Steve McCloskey, CEO and founder of Nanome, where we're creating a molecular metaverse that allows scientists to connect with each other from around the world to help fight disease. Traditionally, a lot of this has been done on 2D computer monitors, non-collaborative, so you need to use things like Zoom in order to share that information. But unfortunately, a lot of that info is lost, and it's not really as accessible as it could be. So that's where we see virtual reality, and really, more than just the VR interface, being able to see 3D, but it's really being able to connect with everyone and have this scientific metaverse. We've been working with top pharmaceutical and biotech companies, working on everything from trying to cure COVID-19 to different cures for cancer and other disease areas. But it's really great being able to work with these companies during the COVID-19 pandemic and feel that we had some real-time effect and benefit for the world around us. Last year, we raised a venture round to help build out a sales team and streamline our sales process. So, we've done that. We have a really great sales team now. We've built that out where now they feel pretty autonomous and they're starting to scale their sales. We just had a record-breaking Q3 where we had a 300% growth rate over last year's Q3. And Q4 is looking even better because we have a really great pipeline right now as well as our expansions. We're currently working on expanding deployments with current customers, as well as looking for new customers in biotech and tech bio. So, really, there are companies making billion-dollar decisions in our software today, really trying to immerse themselves in the best tool possible so that they could have the best chance at having their technology be a success. And if you're working with biotech companies, you really need to ask, are they using the best tools for their research and development teams? And if you think that they could be using better tools, then really hope that you end up seeing this and connect us with them. And don't just take our word for it. Our customers are saying that these are really critical breakthrough insights that are saving them months of time, that are saving them CRO efforts so that they don't need to contract out as many ideas because they can only do so many things. They only contract out the best ideas because they try to validate that using our software and using virtual reality. And really, we're trying to build towards this, complete AI, imagine Jarvis and Iron Man in their interface where you're able to, pull up with voice commands and gesture recognition, different molecular simulations, understand it all very intuitively. And that's how we see this all going down in this metaverse, having this super awesome scientific interface that gives scientists superpowers. And if you haven't already, been in contact with me or the sales team, and you work with biotech companies, maybe in your portfolio, you work for a biotech company, please connect them. If you want to increase the odds of success in giving your scientists and giving your R&D teams these breakthrough insights and shaving time off their go-to-market, really, this is the best way to do it. So, connect with me, Steve at nanome.ai, or connect with our sales team at sales@nanome.ai. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you to Steve and the Nanome team. So next up, we have Luxid Labs. So this is a bonus company. Luxid Labs was a part of our GOAL program. So GOAL stands for Global Overseas Acceleration and Learning, where we partner with governments of countries across the world. So Luxid has created a platform with eye tracking and brain sensing technology in virtual reality. So let's give it up for Luxid Labs.
Hello, my name is Anna Jo. As we age, both our physical and cognitive functions start to decline. Although cognitive and physical aging are natural occurrences, cognitive and mental health is an issue faced by people of all ages. Considering cognitive impairment and healthy life expectancy, dementia is the most devastating and challenging disease due to its psychological impact, costs, and social burdens brought on patients and their families. As the aging population is increasing, the lifetime social and economic cost of care for cognitively impaired older people is rapidly increasing as well. Especially social cost is paid through increased trauma of affected families, and long-term economic cost is paid by private insurance companies, both of which trend upwards over time. Early symptoms of cognitive decline start to appear 20 to 25 years before the onset of Alzheimer's disease, and if diagnosed and treated early, 20 to 25% of people can preserve their current cognitive function and help prevent the onset of dementia. So what if we can detect the early signs of cognitive impairment and help them in advance? I would now like to introduce our AI-driven VR cognitive assessment and training system, Lucy.
As we age, many of our cognitive abilities can start to decline. And sometimes it can leave you feeling lost if you don't know how to keep your mind fit. But what if you could have a physical trainer for your brain? Introducing Lucy, your AI cognitive health coach. Lucy's designed to help track, measure, and improve your brain health every day. With 6 brain sensors and embedded eye tracking cameras, Lucy is a highly advanced brain training system disguised as a simple VR headset. While you play VR games, Lucy measures your brainwaves and eye movements and interprets them in real time. Lucy transfers biometric data to the secure cloud storage and then generates a report with insights in simple, easy-to-understand terms. You can effortlessly share your report with family, doctors, and caregivers, anywhere, anytime.
Our company has sharpened the technology to build the next VR healthcare platform. Lux's competitive advantage lies in its cognitive impairment screening, training, and treatment that leverages a compatible, high-quality, easy-sensor, AI-driven healthcare data interpretation and real-time biofeedback VR content. As you saw in the video, Lucy provides 3 core values for users: accessibility, active research, and enjoyment. VR mental health care technology will completely reshape the cognitive health market. We aim to address not just in VR in healthcare market, but also in intelligent diagnostics and digital therapeutics. In particular, VR healthcare in the United States market is double the size of Europe and almost triple the size of Asia. VR technology is typically associated with younger generation, but last year Forbes reported that there is an unlikely group of early users emerging, the elderly. They are using VR technology to combat their physical handicaps and to improve their mental health. So we found market opportunities for business growth. We have clinical research in Korea where Lucy is proved to be effective to help manage cognitive impairment and depression. We signed an MOU with a prominent pharmaceutical company, Eisai Korea, which has the recent FDA-approved Alzheimer's disease drug aducanumab, but we believe we need the right partner in terms of collecting normative data and testing our products in the United States. This is the simple scheme of our business model. When it comes to revenue streams, our business model has B2B, B2G, B2C settings. Our revenue models are based on service fee and repetitive sensor key sales. In Korea, we created a visiting year mental health care service called the 5G Plus program, as in Simobile. Simobile allowed people in underprivileged areas to experience game-based cognitive healthcare services and recommended related insurance services. All in all, we imagine a world where VR mental health care technology to empower people to have a higher quality of life. Thank you for listening.
Wonderful, and thank you to Luke Said Labs. So that was the last startup, and that about wraps up our startup pitches. We hope you enjoyed these quick presentations and learned a little bit more about some of the technologies that are shaping the future of healthcare. On behalf of myself and the entire health team, I'd like to give another big thank you to all of the Batch 13 startups and to all of our partners who participated in this fall program. It's been an absolute pleasure working with you all, and we're so excited to continue watching all of these startups grow. I would also like to say thank you and give a big shout out to all the mentors that helped shape our program. They gave invaluable feedback and advice to our startups. They hosted some incredible workshops and spoke at our events throughout these last few months. We appreciate you, and we thank you all as well. So now it's time to vote for your favorite startup. This is my favorite part of Summit. You're going to see a poll pop up on your screen. While we give you a minute to cast your votes, I'm going to pass it off to my colleague Jennifer, who's going to introduce you all to our Corporate Innovation Award winner. So Jennifer, I'll have you take it from here.
All right, thank you, Ava. Great presentation by the startups. But now I have the honor of announcing our Corporate Innovation Award winner. And this year, it's our partner, White Plains Hospital. So congratulations, White Plains Hospital. And I'd like to ask Jonathan Bandel, Chief Innovation Officer at White Plains Hospital, to turn on his video. Hey, Jonathan.
Hey, Jennifer, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Doing well.
Good. Awesome. Well, congratulations. And before I hand it over to you to say a few words, I just wanted to sort of give a little bit of context here. So Plug and Play makes this distinct recognition to a partner that has demonstrated commitment this past year or the past 6 months, even of expanding innovation culture by developing partnerships with startups, building networks with peers and across industry, and through thought leadership within the Plug and Play ecosystem, which White Plains Hospital has done for us on a number of occasions. And, it was another challenging year, and White Plains Hospital and their venture arm, East Post Road Ventures, demonstrated an impressive commitment to driving investment in digital health technology to really bring innovation to market faster. And frankly, we've just been so impressed by the speed at which you guys have executed, Jonathan, and your ability to engage in so many topic areas that we brought to you. So it's very impressive. And just a bit on Jonathan, as I said, Chief Innovation Officer of White Plains Hospital. He's quickly risen throughout the hospital to lead the charge on healthcare innovation. Jonathan oversees strategy, programmatic growth, and development of key service lines, in addition to the White Plains Hospital Innovation Engine, as I mentioned, East Post Road Ventures, of which he is also the founder. So, and just this fall, can't forget, he was named to Modern Healthcare's top 25 emerging leaders list. So welcome, Jonathan, and we so enjoy working with your talented team. And I'd love to give you a few minutes to say a couple words.
Thank you. I appreciate that. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Plug and Play, Jennifer, Nathan, the entire team, Julianne, everyone, Peter, everyone we work with. We are truly humbled and honored to receive this recognition and award. It's just another validation of the work that we're doing here. Of course, as Jennifer mentioned, none of this is possible without my incredible team, Bob Largy, Dr. Zult Kulchar, Dr. Jim Peacock, Dr. Matt Shafaroff. And as you can tell, most of the names I mentioned are physicians, and that's intentional as well. But none of this is possible without my team that every day is sourcing new deal flow. And we're also responsible for the implementation of any technology that we do invest in. So also looking at the different workflows, looking at how to best deploy the technology, working with the startups to correct anything that's not optimized. Again, without my team, none of this is possible. Without our leadership team backing our efforts, it wouldn't be possible. Our CEO, Susan Fox, our CFO, Joseph Guaracino, our board of directors, we actually formalized a governance structure where there's an innovation committee of the board now that oversees our investment activities. And their support has been critical for us to be able to be as quick as we are and also as focused as we are. I want to thank our portfolio companies. These are more than just portfolio companies. We've truly developed partnerships, and it was evident during the COVID pandemic. White Plains Hospital, we're located in Westchester County, New York, which is the suburbs just north of New York City. And this was the original epicenter of COVID in the United States. And just having the nature of the relationships that we do with our startups, we were able to quickly leverage those relationships to respond to COVID. As bad as it was during the entire COVID pandemic, which is ongoing, we did learn a lot from an innovation standpoint. it also focused our efforts around the development of that digital health ecosystem, as Jennifer mentioned. We quickly learned what worked and what didn't from the context of telehealth, telemedicine, and video visits and the limitations of those. And we were able to pivot and focus our strategy to develop a true digital health ecosystem where we meet patients where they are, whether it be through active remote patient monitoring of chronically ill at home to passive remote patient monitoring for patients post-discharge that, to increase likelihood to adhere to our care protocol, we're tracking different biometric data on a passive level. So patients don't have to do anything different than what they would normally do. And just remember to charge their devices. It's been a wild journey. I think my team is uniquely positioned because of our relationship to a hospital. We're the corporate venture arm of a hospital. And, it's been a pride of mine and my team, I think, to speak for them, has been the fact that we get to see it through implementation. So we get both sides of it and see the technology work the way that we hope and envision, and working with those different startups to ensure that it does. We're also unique in that we crowdsource pain points from our organization. And so Plug and Play has truly been an invaluable partner as well, where we'll identify a pain point and we'll be able to speak to the Plug and Play team to say, this is the area of interest. What have you seen? And then, get a curated list of, 10 startups in that space and introductions has been invaluable as we built out our ecosystem. So again, I want to thank Plug and Play, Jennifer, your team, and recognize that it does take a village, and thank everyone who's made this possible.
All right. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Thanks for those words too. Really, it's been a pleasure to work with you guys and fun too. They're a great and funny team. Always got a good joke for us. So thanks again, Jonathan. And we look forward to a lot more.
Thank you. We do as well.
Take care. Thanks for the words. And I'll pass it back to you, Ava.
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. And congratulations again to White Plains Hospital on your Corporate Innovation Award. So we thank you all so much again for attending our Health Expo today. We invite you to also attend the rest of this week's expos. We have InsurTech tomorrow and FinTech on Thursday, so be sure to tune in for that. I just want to leave you all with the last note. As the world slowly but surely is opening up, we do have high hopes for 2022, and we do look forward to hopefully seeing all of you who tuned in virtually today in person here in Silicon Valley, hopefully next summer for our Summer Summit in June. So with that, take care, be safe. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.